Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Fear Street, Part 2, 1978. And this is the second part of Netflix's trilogy of R.L. Stine adaptations from his teenage series Fear Street. And calling this a Part 2 is very interesting, and especially because these dates go back in time, and realistically all this is kind of a framed narrative of basically it's just Gillian Jacobs' character, which glad to see Gillian Jacobs pop up a little bit in this film, is telling the story of the film. So it's kind of like it's a prequel. It's not really a sequel except for like a couple minutes before and after. And really we have this film from Lee Janiak and continuing this story of all the mayhem that happened with this witch in this town. In the first film, now we get to see the not even like the backstory of the witch necessarily, just another one of these attacks. This one taking place at a summer camp with an axe-wielding camp counselor who then winds up having like a knapsack on his head, so then of course he looks like some kind of slasher villain of mashup of Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, all those fun things. And the first thing that I noticed about this film is they really try to set up the fact that you're 1978. And generally, I love music in movies and don't have a problem when there's tons of music. This just felt like not even excessive, because I've seen movies with more music. It just felt so obnoxious, like, hey, 1978. And the amount of times they played Cherry Bomb and Carry On Wayward Son, which I love both those songs, especially Carry On Wayward Son. I'm a huge Kansas fan, but it felt obnoxious after a while. But I love me some Kansas. In general, this film feels like pretty much your standard slasher, especially camp slasher kind of film. There isn't anything really creative about the kills or anything like that. It's just some dudes chasing after all these camp kids with an axe. And it's effective. There's some scares and stuff like that. It's just nothing new or fresh or interesting. It's pretty standard. And, they shake things up because it's not just like a slasher thing. There's a witch behind all of this, and you're trying to find the mystery of what the hell's going on here. And it's building up to this third part, which we'll get to that in a minute. But there's a lot of little expositional things plotted throughout to add some things. One of the better things about this film is the sisterly bond that we have at the center of the film, and also of a resparking of a friendship. Those kinds of things work. There's some love stories that just feel like, your standard teenage love stories. It's ooh, you're cute, and now we love each other. And it's not the most engrossing or particularly interesting dynamics, but I felt like the sisterly bond really was. You have your standard horror score in this film, and this is from the composers Marco Beltrami and then Brandon Roberts, and the score is there and you notice it. It is big, it's bold, and it feels like a horror movie score. Marco Beltrami does great score work, does great composing. It's exactly what you need it to be, especially because this is trying to be I saw people comparing to 80s kind of slasher, but I'm takes place in 78, so I don't know if they're going for a Halloween vibe, but this doesn't quite feel like Halloween. It definitely feels like Friday the 13th. And I have to look, actually, I don't remember when the first Friday the 13th came out, but this feels heavily influenced by the first Friday the 13th, except the fact that there's an actual mass killer in this one and not the first Friday the 13th. For all of you who misremember that information, go back and watch it. But you have this film. Here's the thing. This is an hour and 50-minute film. It feels long. The first one felt long. And then I looked at it. There's 10 minutes of credits here. And you're just so it's only an hour and 40 minutes, but it still felt long. Because it just feels repetitive after a while. It's just kids running from place to place to place, being chased, people getting chopped up with axes. Like, there's not a whole lot of like nuance or anything particularly different or interesting about it, and the tension just feels like we're moving along at this brisk pace to be like, who's gonna get slashed next? And it's very, very, very bloody. And it's very bloody, it's over the top, but not like I don't know if this film quite reaches campy level of like fun horror movie kind of thing. It's very pulpy. This is like Blumhouse kind of horror, not like A24 kind of horror. And then you have all the tropes that you get in these kinds of horror movies, and like sex. Teenagers will have sex and then they will die. There you go. You should watch What You Do. And then to throw some shout outs to Sadie Sink, who plays our main character here, Ziggy, who grows up to be Gillian Jacobs. She's great in Stranger Things. She's really good here. Emily Rudd, who plays her sister. They're the two leads. They have the most to work with. They do the best job. And then even Ryan Simpkins, who's this other character who's paired up with Emily Rudd through most of the film, does a really fine job as well. She's more of like the edgier kind of character, like the outsider kind of character, so she's a little bit more interesting than some of the more straight-laced characters. But in the end, this is a fun and effective but pretty standard horror flick. And, you know, Netflix has these trio of movies, and I'm interested to see what they do with the third one, because, you know, enter part 3, and we're getting transported back to, like, 1663. I'm like, okay, like, are we pulling an Army of Darkness here? If this gets, like, that crazy over the top, that would be great. Based off of, like, the little teaser that they show you leading into the next one, it looks pretty dark and grim and stuff like that. So I don't think we're going in that direction. But in the end, Fear Street Part 2, 1978, is a fun follow-up. Pretty standard affair. If you enjoy these pulpy kind of horror films, you're going to have some fun with this. If you don't like horror films, you're not going to have fun with this. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.